when I took a job jogging every day with a dog in a quiet suburb. I thought I had hit the jackpot. I'm a high school student. Running is a habit. Extra money? Extra dog running happily beside me? Great. And where I run? A quiet residential area. Wide roads. Little traffic. Surrounded by trees. Birds chirping. Clear sky. But, you know what? The quietest places are sometimes the loudest. People are most easily lost. I didn't know that, until Izzy, the dog I ran with, suddenly stopped in the middle of the woods. Ears erect, body stiff as rock, and I looked in the direction it was looking, to see one face peeking out from behind the tree, silently watching our every move. He said nothing, didn't blink, and a few days later, he started, follow. And me? I believed I was fast enough to get away from anyone. But I forgot one thing. Not all predators need to run. I wasn't the brightest kid on the team. I wasn't the first pick for the big races or the one who won every race. But I had something that not everyone had, persistence. There was something about long-distance running that made me feel easier. Every time I ran, the heavy things in my head started to lighten. All that remained was the pace, the breath, the wind. I started running in 9th grade. Not because I had any passion for it. It was after coming in last on a fitness test that I decided I needed to make a change. Not to impress anyone, just to feel like I had some control. So I ran, every day, streets, gyms, trails around school, anywhere my feet could land. In 11th grade, I was accepted into the official track team, not because my teachers picked me, but because the captain saw that I was still practicing regularly even though no one was paying attention. He said, "We want someone who is durable. Not fast, just doesn't quit." I laughed. Finally, someone understood my strengths. That's when I got a job running errands with a dog named Izzy. It started out by accident. A woman in the neighborhood near the school, her name was Nancy, posted on an internal forum looking for someone to run her little dog every day. Izzy was a border collie, full of energy and destructive beyond description. She tried everything, but Izzy just rocketed around the house. Finally, the vet said, either he gets a run every day, or get ready to replace the sofa. I came across the message while I was waiting for the bus. I needed money for new running shoes. I texted and was surprised to be selected the next day. Nancy said, "You only need to come 3 times a day. Take him for 20 to 30 minutes. But a longer run in the afternoon or evening is even better." And so I started to be friends with Izzy. Izzy is a wonderful dog if you are the only one she needs to pay attention to. She doesn't bite or bark much, but she always looks you straight in the eye as if she's reading your mind. Every morning when I arrive, she's waiting behind the screen door, her eyes glowing like mini flashlights. The area where Nancy lived was a little isolated, a row of houses halfway between town and the woods. A few minutes walk would take you to the old cemetery trail, or further down the road to the ruins of a religious camp abandoned decades ago. The adults in the area always told you not to go that far, because there had been accidents, or disappearances, or things that should not be repeated. I'm not too sure. I run every day, in the daylight, on a clear path, with a dog by my side. What's there to be afraid of? From day one, Izzy took me farther than I had planned. She didn't like to hang around on the sidewalk. She wanted space, the smell of trees, the sounds of the forest. And I didn't mind. After I got used to the rhythm, I found that having a running partner like Izzy helped me run more consistently. On pace, at the same time, every day, once in the morning, once at noon, and once in the late afternoon. Near sunset, it was usually empty, quiet, a little lonely, but it was my favorite time. No more cars, no more people calling my name. Just me, Izzy, and the roads opening up before me. One time, as I was running through the cemetery, I stopped and sat down near the oldest headstone. Izzy didn't bark, but lay next to me. Strangely quiet, I sat there, remembering the afternoon before when my father had called from another state, asking if I wanted to transfer schools. My mother had just left for a long business trip. He was worried I would be lonely. But I had said no. I don't want to leave. I built something here, a rhythm, a balance. And now that I think about it, maybe that balance was as fragile as the thin chain I was using to hold Izzy. There were days when I was so tired. I just intended to take Izzy for a short walk, but she pulled me farther away, as if something in the woods was calling to her. And I, despite knowing my mother's rule, never go too far alone, went along anyway. Because I believe in my speed. I believe if something happens, I can run away. Izzy stopped suddenly in the middle of the dirt road once. I almost hit him. He stood still, ears cocked, eyes fixed on the woods. I smiled and reassured him. Just another squirrel or deer. But that day was not a squirrel. I turned back to shine my flashlight into the woods. Nothing. I think I imagined it. I think everything will be fine. Until that time, late afternoon. Just dusk. The wind whistled gently through the pine branches. The sunlight cast long orange-red streaks on the road. That day, Izzy didn't just stop. It moaned. And when I turn around, I see what makes my life peaceful shatter like glass. The twilight is usually at its most beautiful around 6 p.m. in the spring, but that day, the light made me uneasy. Not because it was too bright, but because it made everything seem like it was burning slowly. The orange gold was patchy, falling on the asphalt, covering the tree trunks, casting eerie long shadows like the shadows of people lying on the ground. Izzy didn't like to walk along the small paths by the woods near the cemetery. But that day, for some reason, she kept pulling me toward the small path that led deeper into the semi-wildland, where the rows of pine trees stood straight like a fence of time. I tried pulling her back, and she was obedient but didn't move. She didn't whine on the leash, didn't bark, just stood still, eyes wide, ears erect. Her body was completely still, like a statue. "Come on, Izzy," I said softly. "It's nothing." I bent down and patted its back. Normally it would respond by licking my hand or tilting its head. But this time, no. It didn't turn around. It didn't even glance at me. I followed its gaze. Forest, trees, nothing in particular. The wind blew gently through the pine trees, making a sound so familiar, yet so different. And then, it groaned. One hourmoan, low, almost hoarse. Not like it saw a cat or a squirrel. It was scared. A chill ran down my spine. Not because of the wind, not because of the cool weather, but because for the first time in nearly a month of running together, Izzy has raised the alarm. I carefully pulled out my phone. I kept a small flashlight attached to the side of my case. Just enough to provide light in low light conditions without being too bright. I turned it on, my hands shaking slightly. The light swept over the first tree. Nothing. To the right, just leaves, brush, and an old, twisted stump. Then I panned to the left. I swear there was a movement. Very light. I stopped, turned off the light, turned it back on. Light was coming through the middle of two trees about 20 feet away from me. And then I saw him. Standing behind the tree, only half face revealed. His hand rested on the tree trunk as if leaning against it. Saying nothing, not moving, expressionless. I froze. The man was about 30 years old. Short and thin. His baseball cap was pulled low, covering most of his forehead, but the light revealed his clean-shaven chin and deep black eyes. He wore a thick winter coat, though it was April and the afternoon was pleasant. The collar was pulled up high, covering most of his mouth. He wore black gloves that looked like they were for mechanics. I couldn't see his legs clearly. The lower part was hidden by rotting leaves and fallen branches. But I knew he was there looking at me. And what makes me shudder the most, he did not blink. A moment passed. I don't know if it was 3 seconds or 30, but I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Izzy took a small step back, tail tucked between her legs, then sat down close to my legs, as if to melt into me. I swallowed, nodding politely at the man, hoping I was wrong. A hiker, perhaps? A hunter? A meditator? No one stands looking at strangers so long without saying anything. But I forced a smile and said, "Hello." No response. "Don't blink." I felt like I was talking to a statue, but a statue of breathing. I slowly pulled on Izzy's leash and started backing away. 1 step, 2, without turning around. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face as neutral as possible. I remembered what my father had said, if you encounter a wild animal, do not turn your back. Back away slowly, keeping your eyes open. I applied that principle, because in my mind at that moment, the other person is no longer human. When I had taken a few steps back, I turned and pulled Izzy along at a slow jog. No turning back, no saying anything, just going. My heart is not beating fast because I am tired, but because feeling of being watched. When I was back on the main road near the residential area, I dared to stop. I took a deep breath. Only then did I realize that my palms were sweaty, and my shoulders were hunched with tension. I turned back to look. No one, no footsteps, no rustling of leaves. I smiled bitterly. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe he was just some weirdo who lived near the woods. But then Izzy moaned again. Softly. A very soft sound. And this time, she wasn't looking into the woods. Did I look at me? I've never seen a dog's eyes look so sad. And I understand. He feels disappointed. He's scared. And he doesn't know why I haven't left for good. I gripped the leash tightly, leaned down to stroke Izzy's head, and whispered, "It's okay. I hear you. Next time, don't go that way." But I know that promise will not be enough. Because the next night, I still had to come run again. Nancy didn't know. She asked me if I wanted to take the day off tomorrow because it was forecasted to be a little rainy. I almost said yes, but then I thought of Izzy, of the look of fear in her eyes. And I said, "It's okay. I'm going." Sometimes, we don't come back for ourselves, but for something else: duty, compassion, or simply the belief that you are stronger than what you fear. And I was wrong. I'm not stronger than that fear. I just don't know how big it really is. I couldn't sleep that night, even though I had closed the windows, turned off the lights, and curled up under the covers. My brain was still spinning like a broken wheel. I kept thinking about those eyes. Dark, sunken eyes, motionless, without a hint of blinking or moving. A deliberate gaze, not absent-minded, not accidental, but purposeful, as if he was sizing me up. I read somewhere that, when a predator doesn't need camouflage, it has already picked its prey. And that night, I began to believe it. The next morning, I went to take Izzy for a run again. I took a different route, away from the cemetery and the woods. Izzy didn't object. She seemed content to stay away from it. The rest of the morning and afternoon went by normally. The sunlight, the birdsong, and the streaks of sunlight along the path almost made me believe that last night had been a coincidence. But by afternoon, things began to change. I remember it clearly because it was Friday. I had just done a terrible math test and was feeling down. Nancy texted me, "Izzy is a little restless. Let her run a little longer." I was about to say no, but then I nodded. Maybe a longer run would help clear my head of bad thoughts. I arrived at Nancy's house at 5:30. Izzy was bouncing around like always. She was as enthusiastic as ever. But something slowed down as I led her out of the yard. Every time I turned left toward the cemetery, the one we'd been to the day before, she hesitated. Though she didn't object, I said to myself, "We're not going into the woods. We're just going around." I kept a clear distance from the trail last night. I didn't want to see that tree again. The stump he was standing behind. Like a trap. We had been running for about 10 minutes when I saw something strange. I see fresh shoe prints in the ground by the roadside. One side was deeply imprinted, as if someone had stepped off the main road and turned into the woods. I didn't dare look closely, but the footsteps were quite large. The soles of the shoes had a straight pattern. Military boots. I shivered. Izzy started running closer to me now. She didn't bark or panic, but she didn't jerk forward like she usually did. The leash wasn't tight. She just followed me like a small four-legged shadow. I looked around. No one, no cars, no sound except our footsteps and the wind whistling through the leaves. I tried to stay calm. But then, just 3 minutes later, Izzy stopped again. This time, it not standing straight but bending down. Its four legs crouched, its back arched as if ready to jump. It looked into the woods, right where the small path leading to the old area we had avoided was. I looked up, and I saw him, not behind the tree like the other day. No, this time standing at the edge of the forest, just about 4 meters from the main road. No longer hiding, no longer hiding. He wanted me to see. He stood there, slightly to one side, his head bowed, but his eyes never leaving mine. The wind blew the hem of his jacket slightly, revealing the torn khakis underneath, stained with mud and perhaps dried blood or something dark. I stand still. I didn't shine a light. There was no need. The twilight was enough to see the figure, and part of the face. He didn't move, but I could see his chest rise and fall slightly, as if he were breathing or laughing. Izzy started to moan. My legs felt cold. All my senses were focused on one direction: run away immediately. But I didn't run, not because I was brave, but because I felt if I had turned back then, I would never have seen the light again. I turned away and kept walking, trying to keep my pace. Izzy glanced back a few times, then started running after me. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. Not in my chest, in my neck, where the blood vessels were closest to my skin. We turned right onto the narrow road, heading back toward the residential area. But I could feel it, eyes on my back. Not moving, not blinking, not forgetting. As I turned right, I glanced over my shoulder one last time. Him has disappeared, no longer at the edge of the forest. No footsteps, no wind sound, nothing left. I couldn't run any faster. My legs were like rocks. I walked the last half mile to Nancy's house like a ghost, holding onto Izzy's leash like a drowning man clinging to a life preserver. When I got to the yard, Izzy didn't jump around like usual. She just sat by the gate, waiting for me to open it. Once inside, she ran to the corner of the house, collapsed, and stared wide-eyed at the door. Nancy didn't notice. She was on the phone in the kitchen. I said goodbye and left immediately. That night, I turned on all the lights in my room. I tried to picture the man in my mind. There was nothing special about his face. No scars, no blood, no weapons. Only one thing that keeps me up at night. He doesn't look like a lost person. He does not look like a vagabond. He was like, testing how I would react. Like a hunter throwing stones at a young animal to see which way it runs. And I began to understand, he is studying me. I used to fantasize about how I would react if I was chased in the woods. As a long-distance runner, I always had this silly thought, no matter who chases me, I will escape. I used to believe in my leg muscles, in my breathing technique, in my heart being strong enough. But those things no longer make sense when you realize who is chasing you, not a normal person. The evening started out normal. The sky was cloudy and moonless, but it was still bright enough to run without lights. Nancy texted me later than usual, apologizing for being busy. I arrived at her house around 7. Hesitant, the chill of the evening crept into my fingers, signaling something was wrong. Izzy didn't jump around like she usually did. She sat quietly in the doorway, her head tilted slightly as if listening for a sound I couldn't hear. I almost said, "Can we take a break?" But I thought, I need to run. I need to prove that I'm not afraid. And so I attached the leash to Izzy's neck and stepped out into the street. We took the usual route, from Nancy's house, around the narrow path near the woods, and back by the wider road. I was determined not to go near the place where I had seen him. I even avoided looking into the woods, as if I didn't look, it wouldn't exist. Mistake. We ran for about 15 minutes. Nothing unusual, until Izzy again stands still. I'm not superstitious, but I believe in animal instinct. And when Izzy, the dog who used to pull me up the hill without tiring, faints, whole body tense as a bowstring. I know, it saw something I didn't see. I bent down, tightening my grip on the chain. What is it? Izzy didn't growl, didn't bark, just stood there as if frozen by some invisible force. I looked up, and this time, he no more standing still. He is going straight towards me. Not slow, not fast, just steady, a broken, irregular gait, as if the joints weren't quite where they should be. His coat fluttered in the wind. His right arm hung limply. Left hand, hold a knife. Not a kitchen knife, not a fruit knife, a butcher knife. Large, sharp, shining under the light from afar. I didn't scream. I turned and ran. Izzy ran after her. No need to pull. We dashed down the street. Footsteps pounding behind us. I didn't have to turn around to know he was chasing. I heard it, boots hitting the ground. Hard, fast, close together, but no breathing sound. I could hear my breathing. Izzy's, the rustling of leaves, but him complete silence. Like a machine, we rounded a bend, took a shortcut behind a vacant lot. I had never driven this way at night before, but I didn't care. I needed the detour. I needed the darkness. I needed escape. I looked back and nearly froze. He is still following. His mouth opened, not smiling, not angry, just open as if didn't know how to use facial muscles to express emotions. And his eyes, still looking at me, unblinking. I screamed, "Izzy, hurry!" She ran as fast as she could. I could hear her hooves crunching on the asphalt. Every time I slowed down, the chain pulled tight. Izzy was urging me on, faster. Not enough. I turned into a yard with a wooden fence. Climbed over. Fell. Foot hit a rock. Blood oozed from knee. Didn't stop. Izzy still runs ahead. I got up. I kept running. Every time I put my foot on the ground, it was a sharp pain. But fear is greater than pain. I heard the sound of wood. He also jumped the fence. Him indefatigable. Him no shortness of breath. I started crying as I ran. Not necessarily from fear of dying, but from a feeling of hopelessness. A feeling thought no matter how far I run, he will come closer. But Izzy didn't leave me. We reached the main road near the residential area. I saw the street lights. I saw the pale yellow light spread out on the sidewalk like a hand of safety. I don't know if he followed or not. I dare not turn back. Izzy ran straight toward Nancy's house. I instinctively ran after her. I had no idea where I was going. All I knew was that where there is light, there is hope. As I got closer to Nancy's house, I turned into a small alley, hiding behind a shed near the fence. I pulled Izzy along. We both breathed like the last oxygen in life. I pressed my back against the cold wood. The rotting smell overwhelming. My heart was pounding like a drum. I closed my eyes, praying I wouldn't let myself make a sound. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The wind stopped blowing. I slowly opened my eyes and looked up the small slope in front of the house. He stood there, about 20 meters away. Do not move. Do not hold the knife in your hand raised. Only stand and look. Eyes no longer angry, no longer crazy. Just a pair of empty eyes. As if he were thinking, why didn't the prey keep running? Already, he turned away. No rush, no panic, as if this is a daily occurrence. He went into the woods and disappeared. I sat there for another 10 minutes. Then I took Izzy and snuck back to the back of the house. The back door was unlocked. I didn't tell Nancy. I went home, showered, didn't eat dinner. I lay in bed with the light on all night. Izzy, yes, I had asked her to stay with me for a few more days, lay at my feet. Eyes open, ears listening. No one slept that night. After that night, I was not myself. I still run, still go to school, still say hello to my mom like every day. But a part of me was left in that forest, where his eyes met mine across the distance, where his footsteps echoed without a breath, where his knife flashed like the metal of death. No one believed me when I told them. My mother thought I was stressed out. My teachers thought I watched too many movies. Even Nancy looked at me suspiciously when I asked to stop babysitting Izzy. I'm not mad at them, because how can you believe something when it's beyond what people call logic? Only Izzy understood. She refused to leave me for days after that. Whenever someone came too close too suddenly, she would growl softly, her ears flattened, her body tense like a string about to snap. I know it remembers too. A week after that night, I returned to the area, partly out of curiosity, partly because I needed to know, is he real? Or am I crazy? I went with my father. He was an ex-soldier who had once been a local police officer. When I told him the whole story, he didn't laugh or doubt me. He just asked me one question. Are you sure his eyes don't look like someone who is angry, but like someone who has nothing left to lose? I nodded, and so he came with me. He had a flashlight, a walkie-talkie, and something I hadn't expected him to have, his old service-issued pistol. We left in the morning. The sky was clear. The birds were singing. Nothing. We walked the same path that day. Through every bend, every piece of land with footprints that I remember by heart. But it was as if nothing had happened. No blood, no knife marks, no shoe prints, no familiar tree roots. Nothing. I remember my father stood still for a long time, then turned and said, "There are people in this world who only show up when you're lonely and vulnerable." He chose me because he thought I was easy to bully. But here I am, still alive, and that means he was wrong. I have never heard him speak so gently about life and death. I haven't seen him since. Not in the woods, not on the run, not in my dreams, but I know he's still there, not out there. Boot in my memory, like a dark shadow stuck in the corner of my heart, reminding me that in this world, not all scary things make noise. Some things, just looking at you is enough to make you shiver. I learned to move on, but not by forgetting, but by remember correctly. Remember how it felt when Izzy stopped, when my skin went cold even though there was no wind, when my instincts warned me but my mind tried to push them away. I remember not to repeat. I started writing this story, not for attention, but so that if anyone is like me, young, optimistic, athletic, believing I was fast enough to get away with anything, they will know that the scariest thing is not the one chasing you, But when you don't trust your instincts. I went back to jogging in the mornings. Izzy stayed with me on weekends now. She was back to normal, though she still occasionally stared out the window quietly as it got dark. I understand, me too. But now, I know this. Light is not only during the day. It lies in every right decision we make. It lies in every time we turn around at the right time. Every right turn, every time we stop to listen to our heartbeat. And most importantly, it lies in the never let fear control you again. Checkmark. What do I learn from all this? If you feel something is wrong, believe it. That feeling is your evolutionary gift. Don't think you're fast enough to get away with it. All smarter is survival. If you are jogging, walking or going somewhere alone, always tell someone where you are going. And don't hesitate to carry backup. And if you have a dog, listen to it. It can sense things you can't see with your eyes. Loudspeaker. If you've made it this far, thank you. This story is not meant to scare you, but to remind that we all have limits. And there are also opportunities to overcome them, not with physical strength, but with belief in yourself. Speech balloon. If you've ever had a strange experience while walking, running, or just had a not so good feeling following you, share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. Thumbs up please. Like if you feel Izzy deserves to be a little hero. And comment with an emoji paw to cheer for this brave dog. Push pin and don't forget click subscribe to channel after 0 hours to not miss other strange, thrilling and emotional stories, where each video is a reminder that nightlife is sometimes not what we think it is. Thank you, and see you again after 0 hours.